The year is 2054. As far as I know, I'm the last surviving human being in New York City. No, this is not that kind of film. I don't know what kind of film this is, but this is not that kind of film. It would be fun to be in one of those films, though. I really wish I could get behind the idea of being in films like that. Like, what's wrong with just having fun and do a film like that starts out, it's 2054 and I'm the last surviving human being in New York City. I would like to have that experience. I want to have that experience. Okay, here we go.
All set?
Yep.
We're rolling.
1, 2, 1.
Well, you know, we are here in beautiful, where are we?
We're in beautiful rural Phoenix.
That's right. We're in rural Phoenix, Arizona. It's April the 22nd. It's actually Earth Day.
And Good Friday.
And Good Friday. So that doesn't happen.
It's Earth Day today?
Yep. All right, I'm going to try to give you a couple of setups for the day.
All right.
So we get some clean ones.
Thanks.
Yeah, it's April 22nd. It's 2000.
Oh, there's some saguaro.
Oh, I love it.
Uh-huh.
Is that,
There's tall cactus.
that's like the Wile E. Coyote cactus.
That's right. And birds make little holes and nest in it.
Isn't that interesting? What a metaphor for life that, you know.
It's everything.
It is.
You can get water from it.
Wow. It's Earth Day, April the 22nd, and we are in beautiful Phoenix, Arizona.
And it is gorgeous and hot.
Beautifully hot, you know? It's a dry heat. You know what they
It
say?
sure is. It's a very dry heat that makes your hair go very straight.
Yes, that's true. It's even straightened out my hair. I actually had an afro before I got to Phoenix.
Uh-oh.
Tight curled afro. And now my hair is
That's gone.
straight. It's gone.
Yes.
We just went to the local Fry's Pharmacy, which is an enormous establishment.
Mm-hmm. I joined it.
We have a member here.
Yes. Card carrying.
When would be a good time to officially call in people?
The other people?
Yeah, because it's
I
not
thought it was
today.
next Sunday.
Next Sunday.
But just so everyone knows, since everyone is here right now, I'm not going to be here next Sunday because of Rosh Hashanah, because I'm going to be home for the weekend.
Why don't you stay for Rosh Hashanah and go Yom Kippur?
Can we do it on a weeknight?
What time are we supposed to start?
Maybe we can do an evening rehearsal on Sunday night.
Yeah. Would that be easier for you?
No, I'm actually. Well, I'm DJing across the street at 8:30.
Well, you really laid a lot of time open for rehearsal on Sunday.
Well, I happen to have Rosh. I mean, I scheduled it around rehearsal originally, and then I Rosh Hashanah came up. This ancient holiday just propped up.
Well, it's different every year.
It's never set.
It's not like,
It's
huh?
not
Yeah,
a set
it's like a
thing.
different day every year.
Ancient things just are all over
Well,
the
look,
place.
I feel like we have to just.
Can't find that.
I don't know. I mean, we have to
No,
begin at some point.
No, but I mean, what I can do is I can try to be there by 4. I can try to be there by 4. I mean, we can just start at 2, and I'll be there at 4.
Maybe if it's going to be easier.
That's cool. I think 2 is a safe time. It leaves time in the evening to go home and chill out before your week.
I mean, I'll be there at some point, so it won't
Should we do like 2 to 6?
Yeah, we can do. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
fine. I think that's good.
We started on 42nd Street as a company, and we were transforming raw spaces on 42nd Street between 6th and Broadway, which is what's now One Bryant Park, or the Bank of America building. So before it was that, it was a Tad Steak and a Pronto Pizza and a 25-cent peep show place and Duane Reade. And as each one of those places, their leases ran up, they weren't renewed so that they could just let everyone's lease expire and then level the block and build the One Bryant Park. September 11th happened, and a lot of stuff happened in there that just meant that we were in those rows of storefronts for like 5 years or something, 6 years. And so we would get access to these really wonderful spaces, and that's what we wanted to do, is completely de-traditionalize and move away from what we felt were these kind of the cultural institutions at the time, which were, you can really only do a certain amount of things in those spaces, and I feel like we all collectively had a much larger vision than that. So we'd work our jobs at FIT or wherever it was that we were working, and then all night we would spend building and transforming, and I became an electrician because I taught myself how to rewire the whole space, and like we were all doing construction and set work,
that kind
and
of
we all
construction jobs in a way. So
Yeah.
we all knew how to make a
Jesse's an
theater
amazing
out of
painter,
a space that didn't have a theater, and then
and so
that
we
was
would build
really-
these
yeah.
very specific spaces that the first one that we did, which was episode 23, Garvey and Superpants, we built a scale model of an old vaudeville theater that was inside of this basement of this old deli. And so you'd walk off the street, and there was this door with all this graffiti on it, and you'd go down and part these red curtains and go into this little jewel box space with 23 seats. And then for another show that we did called Placebo Sunrise, which was a few doors down, we had this really long Masonic building that was cut in half, and one side was at fresco tortillas, which is dead rats in the basement we found. After we'd been eating there for a long time and finally got into the shared basement, there was all these exploded rats in the basement near. It was disgusting. So we transformed that space into, some people called it a cruise ship, we called it a hotel, but it was this really long, narrow space with a lot of doors, and we'd create these very elaborate musical theater meets farce meets surrealist kind of intellectual madness. And they were a lot of fun. We'd build our own bars. We were really building sort of very bespoke environments that you would come into. It was different than anything that was happening at the time. So it was really a moment that we really seized this moment. It was a real estate moment in New York. It was a moment in our lives. We all came together. We all had really diverse backgrounds, and we all sort of met and formed this unwieldy beast, which was the NTUSA.
It doesn't. Well, it's just different than how we would do it in concert. I guess it's like no, or the way we do it in concert is like da na 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 na. Let's try us starting as we would in concert, but you guys don't give an accent to when you come in. That's all.
Wait, I've always wanted to know about the origin of the name, the Sheriff.
The Sheriff?
Yeah, what's up with
All
that?
right. I'll tell you, but it's a really not a good story.
We'll make it good.
Yeah, embellish a little.
No, I was teaching a master class. There were violinists and violists playing for me, and a violinist, of course, like I play the viola, so I know nothing really about the violin, but she was playing the Viotti 20-second concerto. Do you know that?
I know.
Yeah. Everybody knows. I mean, any violinist probably knows that concerto.
I actually don't know.
How many did he write? Like, that's like an incredible amount of.
3.
At least 22.
I know, because I played the 23rd, so I
okay.
know there's 23.
Well,
But
that's already like an incredible amount of violin concertos to write.
You mean 20-second concerto?
20-second concerto.
20-second.
21 seconds.
Definitely not.
This whole time I was definitely thinking about it. I was like, wow, 20-second.
Wow, 20 seconds.
I
That's a good idea.
You can play like 6 of them. All right.
Anywho, so she was playing, and like I was watching from the audience, and like there was a real disconnect because like she had a really tiny sound, I thought, in the class, and she's rather large.
She's like 6 feet.
And she's like 6 feet tall, like almost.
Big boned. Like.
Big boned. I was getting frustrated, and I tried a few things, it's like, what do you think the character of this music is? Do you think it's strong? I mean, it starts pretty, forcefully.
Molto drammatico.
oh, see, you do know.
So she's sitting there, and like I try everything I can do.
Everything in the book.
Everything in the book. Whatever book that is, and I just, nothing was working. I wasn't getting through. Finally, I just thought, I'll just try this, and I told her to imagine that we were in the Old West, And I was challenging her to a duel. And, I wanted her to draw her pistol, which was her bow, right, to the instrument.
Right.
And, fire to the instrument. And I think, we tried that a couple times, and I think it actually helped, didn't it?
Yeah, but
you were there.
The demo was great because, of course, it starts off high on the violin, which means really high on the viola. So the sheriff, drew his bow, and played wah, it was and that was when our friend who is a professor there and had asked us to come there was the sheriff.
We were cleaning the basement of 111 where we did Garvin Super Pants. Yeah. One night we're sitting on these cinder blocks and we get some pronto pizza and we come downstairs.
Which is bad
and
pizza,
we're
anyway.
Just totally exhausted, after having worked all day. We get there and we're just starving, and there's dust floating up everywhere.
Having worked already.
I go to take a bite of my pizza. I don't know, some spontaneous combustion happens and it just flies out of my hand and lands
cheese
down on the cement basement floor where rats, where Hootie was cleaning up dead rats.
And I started laughing.
And I was just I just, without even thinking, just picked it up and started eating. And I had this flash to myself, sitting in 5th grade and the teacher saying, "This is where you're going to be when you're 28 years old," and I was like,
I heard that Janos Starker, the cellist, he smokes like a chimney, and he would light a cigarette and stick it in his student's mouth while they played, and if the ash broke while they were playing, they had to start over from the beginning, and this was an exercise to try to get them to not have any facial tension when they played, so they don't make funny faces.
Oh, that's interesting.
My teacher used to tell me to release my pelvis.
Oh, God.
And if you knew my teacher,
or
that
pelvis.
would be or my pelvis.
If you knew my pelvis.
She was a guru of sorts. It sounds like she did have a way that was unorthodox of addressing tension problems.
It's funny because I think it's all relative, to the time that you live in. I mean, at her time, her thing was all about if you're not playing relaxed, you're not doing it right. But at the time, that was really different. I mean, going back 19th century, you see these books. I don't know if they were uncomfortable at the time, but the idea was that you would actually hold a book under your arm. Get this sort of 19th century Pierre Bayot sort of stance, here, and that stuck for a long time. And the idea was you should be uncomfortable, because that's correct posture.
You should suffer for the art.
She was
suffer.
Yeah, you have to suffer for it. She was that's bullshit. You have to play relaxed, being able to be free and access your inner, your gut.
I mean, it's not. It doesn't sound strange coming from a dance perspective. I mean, and if I looked at you as a dancer, I would say his pelvis looks a little tight. Or I mean, I would. You would see that.
That would go for pretty much every musician, right?
Right. Well, as Mark Morris says, how hard is it to turn on a classical musician?
That was what he said upon finding out that something was going on.
I look at this weather and this landscape, and I often wonder what I'm doing living here. I mean, it just sometimes feels like such a cold, hard place to live in. People live in Bali, people live in Hawaii, people live in Costa Rica. There's part of me that really feels like I have to be in some kind of struggle state in order to be making something productive of myself. As if being in some beautiful tropical environment would be too easy, or would somehow lessen the work that I was trying to do. Well, that may be true. I'm not quite sure why. I guess I feel at times that that struggle is somehow getting infused into my work into the creative process and somehow making things stronger, but I mean, the reality is that I'm not really doing all that much work as it is, so why not just be comfortable? Why not take that full-time job that I've been putting off? Someone says, well, it's really expensive in Hawaii. You know, the cost of living is really high. It's really high. As if the cost of living in New York City is not really high. And yet people do it. People actually exist in Hawaii.
My mother, Italian, Irish lady, 19 years old when she had me. She loved television. She loved movies. That was how she bonded with her old world Italian grandfather.
Okay,
my blood
so
grandfather.
there's another reason to go into showbiz.
Huge. I mean, imagine my mother, sickly on the couch, has a hysterectomy in 1978.
Oh.
And after that, she was addicted to the pain medication that would eventually, kill her. And she's like, sort of cashed out, but entertained by television, interested in the lives of the actors, interested in the history, the genealogy. It was almost like my ancestry, since I didn't know my real father, it's almost like my ancestry was the ancestry of the movies. Because she would tell me about things, refer back to I don't know, Laurence Olivier and Vivian Leigh and the casting process for Gone with the Wind and,
Right.
And I was like, oh, this is something that has to do with me, And so there was probably a natural inclination I had toward it all, plus that force working on the other side, which was, see this thing on the television, this little machine in the corner is doing something that I very much approve of, and I love it. And my parents were always watching TV, and so it's no coincidence that in my life as an adult, I got onto a television show.
Pleasurable thing that made everybody happy.
Made everybody happy, and it was like that was acceptable. That was like honorable. It was worshipped. And here's the ego part. The ego part of me wanted to be worshipped, wanted to be like really super duper loved and attended to.
I talked to Amy Clark, the potential costume designer.
Maybe her and Penelope could do it together or something.
What happened to what about Kelly? What if we love Kelly? What if she comes in and we're like, holy shit?
Who's Kelly?
We asked you to bring her in.
No, the idea was.
Where
but
is
John,
she?
the idea was that we would, if we're not going with Alicia, who's our person, that we have the relationship with, then we would just interview a few people.
Right. That's what I'm setting up, an interview with Kelly.
All right.
She's one of the few people.
No, and I'm saying, so let's also have an interview with Kirsten.
Great. Cut. This is the kind of discussion. Potential arguments we have.
We have a collaborative company, theater company, which means that there's not it's a democratic process, a messy democratic process. We don't vote on everything. I don't even know how to describe
Eventually
it.
it became, it started off as a sort of, the name of the company is the National Theater of the United States of America, and it was this patriotic thing, sincerely, we are starting over, we're the founding fathers and mother, and that we're going to operate in this democratic way using these words. And it turned out to be more I think the word was consensus based instead of those words, because it was just there was never any voting or any it's 3 people voted yes and 2 people voted no. It's just we kind of had to hash it out until everyone was okay with it. So that was different seeming to me. That was I realized one day, it's okay, that's different. And that's really hard. And the more people you have doing it, the crazier it is, So
We
I'm
all
sure
come from-
you're nodding your head.
Sure. It's hard enough with the 4 of us in Brooklyn Rider, and then we also all play in an orchestra together called The Knights. It's 35 people, or depending on the project, But it's somewhat similar in that it's once in a while there's a vote, but it's usually not about an important thing. It's usually consensus. So that just takes a lot of time. It's messy, as you said, and it's difficult, but rewarding, I think. Some of the time
I guess
more
I
than
still
others.
believe in all of those same things, and
Yeah.
that's still the way I want to operate. it's still true that what I do by myself is not the same as what I'm doing with other people whose point of view I initially don't understand or don't get. And that's something I really have learned in this group, is that honestly, like, I think differently than all of you guys. That's something that it has sunk in. It's made a difference, and that's like a life thing. You know, it's like people you don't get, like, let them in, and the bad ideas will fall away, and the good ones will rise up, and you don't have to like that was when we were at the height of our arguing, and you don't have to do.
It was actually right before. It was right before the height of the arguing.
I didn't remember that.
It was on the way to the summit.
Yeah, we were on our way.
I remember the arguing pretty early on.
I do too.
Sure, we argued a lot, but they really came to a head, I think, in that
But it did not continue after that. There was not an arguing.
Yeah, we made a change after that.
We decided no more. Yeah. Well, we didn't decide. I think we just argued it all out.
Like, I had a teacher once who told me that I was a horrible writer, but I had won like all of these state competitions and like stuff for writing, and then this one teacher totally traumatized me, and I thought for years afterwards that I was a horrible writer. But then like later in life, I encountered other people, and they're like, "Oh, you're a really good writer. You should really like write." But I had like really almost given it up because of this one person who was like, "You're not a very good writer."
That's horrible. I think that should be against teacher law.
Like, you've all had teachers. Like, how have you not done that?
My viola teacher in high school told me to not even dream of making a profession.
Oh, my dad! Yeah, my dad's violin teacher. When my dad started violin, he plays viola now. But when my dad started violin, he was like, "You better quit now."
Wow.
Take up viola.
No, no, it's like you gotta quit.
Well, the tricky thing is, like, you know, it's like this border between, like, you know, feeling like a real commitment to something, you know, deep inside, and like somebody at the time who might see what's coming out at that moment, but somebody at the time making a judgment on that, you know, it's really hard.
Also, what does that judgment, you know, relate to?
It
like,
reflects their own.
Exactly.
It reflects their own stuff.
Yeah, exactly. In Uzbekistan, you know, this violin teacher who's like, he teaches violin, you know, saving a kid by telling him to quit playing, you know. Like,
yeah, that was his agenda.
Yeah, what does that do?
Really?
Guidance counselor at my high school, you know, when I was looking at places to go, and I was telling her, you know, that I'm going to apply for Juilliard.
Right.
She said to me, "Oh, maybe you should think about the community colleges."
That happened to me too.
You know, because, you know, Juilliard is for really, like,
yeah.
When I was in high school, we had a mandatory session with the guidance counselor, and so I went in and she said, "Okay, what do you want to do?" And I said, "Oh, I'm going to be a ballet dancer." And she said, "Oh, okay."
Wait, time out.
Well, let's look through our file of, there was like a, you know, file cabinet, and it was like, dancer, okay. She opens the thing, and it says, "Okay, well, I see two alternatives for you in case that doesn't work out. It's either circus performer."
What you could have done.
Or dog trainer.
And either way, it involves a lot of shoveling of shit.
Circus performer said that?
Yeah. I think that's horrible.
Is that better than a dance? That's better than a ballet.
I think I was in the 6th grade casting some show with the 9th graders or something, and they needed somebody to play the little girl, and I tried out and I thought I was great, and I didn't get the part. Some little blonde curly one got the part, but I never doubted that that's all I wanted to do. It's odd. I just thought anybody who was in theater and didn't keep it up or left, I thought, what? It's not, you just had to.
I have this memory of walking home from school in the cold and trying not to exhale. Walking and trying to avoid letting out any vapor, any condensation, with the hope that maybe someone would be driving by, a scientist in fact, would be driving by and notice me and say, "Hey, wait, that boy there, there's no condensation, there's no vapor coming out. That boy there could be an alien, and they would try to capture me and bring me in for evaluation, for testing. A strange memory.
I was reading this thing about Charles Ives recently and his dad, and he was like, for the people singing in a church choir, he was so against the idea of like they had to sing in key. Like he was very happy if it like that they started off in one key and ended up somewhere else because that was just what they were feeling, and so they went with it. I mean, that brings up like the professional versus amateur spirit. At one point, and as a kid, you are like you are an amateur. You are, and so at that point, your interest is more important than in a way your proficiency at whatever you're doing. Yeah.
My mom said that to me one time. She said, I was always afraid you'd either grow up to be gay or a serial killer. I was like, thanks, Mom.
To have a situation where you can be the performer, but you can also say, I think we should make a breakaway wall, and I'm going to make it tonight, and you guys are going to use it tomorrow. Like that's awesome. It makes you feel more generous to other people and their ideas, and it's just like it was about the ideas that we were talking about and what we had in common in terms of like wanting to create a really alive, really like relevant theater situation, but it was also about everybody having a voice of value in the room and that was it for me, like I could do that forever. That's what I thought at the time, and I still sort of feel that way, like without any ownership over the project, it's not the same.
We were like a freedom machine, like we just wanted to be free, and we wanted to, when you came and saw our shows, we wanted you to feel so unmoored and free that you were compelled to jump up on stage and join us in some way. And some people in the audience said, it was this close to jumping up during Placebo Sunrise.
Why do you want to do that for people? Why do you want to do that for people?
That's what I want. It's totally liberating.
To me, it's about like we're all in the same boat, and we're not making something separate from you. It's about making something that's really fun, that gives you a lot of ideas, a lot of contradictory perspectives, but that's like the human experience to me, and I feel like, to me, that's worth doing. Like, when we did shows that went well, you think this is totally better than if we had not done it. Like this, there wasn't anything here. No one was doing this. Then we did this. That I think things are better now that we did this. It feels better. People have come up to me and said that show changed my life. Thank you.
Of people said that.
Like not a lot of people, like two.
No. I get that a lot.
But
that's a lot. Yeah.
Two. I mean, that's two people. I mean, honestly, if two people felt that way about something that I created, I was part of creating, like it's like an ego thing too. It makes me feel awesome. Makes me feel great, and it makes me like feel more generous. Feel like doing it more. It's like a positive ball.
Right. Yeah.
Positive ball. That's what we used to play. Positive ball all the time.
We called it Posy Ball back in the hood.
Yeah.
Posy ball.
I'm thinking about getting a Kmart credit card so I can have some credit. No, because I don't have any, and that means bad credit.
You can get unlimited credit from Kmart.
Don't. I got a Marshall's card once. I bought a $22 pair of pants, and it ended up costing me like $120.
But not if you pay it. Not if you pay for it.
I couldn't.
Who has
That's
time
the whole
to pay
point.
these things?
That's the whole point.
Yeah.
Can't.
As a veteran, you don't pay them.
As a veteran.
Yeah, that's the whole thing.
James, you have the worst
pay the
credit
thing.
card debt of any one of us here.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Possibly.
He's
Credit
the
card
fattest,
debt.
and he has the most debt.
Credit card debt. I have more debt than him. I have more debt.
You have more
I have the
actual
most debt.
and you have more credit
actual-
card debt.
Yeah, I have more
And
credit card.
how did you
Post-school
accrue so much
I have
of
the
your
most
credit card
ignored
Oh, this
debt.
is good, actually.
James, how did you accrue a lot of your
James?
credit card debt?
Well, travel, expensive clothes.
Yes,
Episode
didn't it have
23.
something to do with the theater we make? Whoa, let's step back. Episode 23, what was that?
Well, that goes all the way back to 2001. We were just a burgeoning theater company, young and foolish.
We're just a
and,
couple of hacks fooling around in a basement.
The Macarena. That's early.
Yeah.
That was an $8,000 present to yourself.
Yeah.
Seeing your first written play produced.
Right.
Actually, your second, probably.
Right.
That's a nice present.
Yeah, that was a good present.
Good present.
Yeah.
It's worth $8,000.
Yeah.
Saw it go to
Now it
Dublin.
is.
And now it's $15,000
Plus
with all the
interest. Before I'm done, it'll be a $40,000 project.
The show started off at 8,000 and went to 17,000.
The budget on that show keeps going up.
Yeah, it keeps accumulating.
The longer we don't perform it.
ended. I often think I've got to try another city. It's not even the need to live in a specific place there. I've got to go there to do this thing. It's just the concept of moving, of taking the risk of trying a new place. Maybe the farthest I would say would be Paris. I like to think I would be the kind of person that could pick up and move to Paris. Who the hell am I kidding? I would never do that. Tokyo definitely seems like the kind of place in my fantasy world I would be able to just pick up and try out Tokyo, but I know I would never in a million years go without having a reason. It just seems like another world to me, and it scares me, but I do find that there's value in that, and that's the kind of risk I would like to be willing to take, but I don't know, maybe some things are just simply not practical. I mean, you've got 2 kids, and what are you going to do? Just pick up and move to Tokyo.
We also did very large, ambitious projects that were just financially ridiculous. You know, like we built a ride that was also a show of 400 years of American history seen through the lens of a time-traveling game show. And we physically moved the audience on this platform that we built.
This happened, right?
This happened.
And went through all of history.
Yeah.
All of history.
And all alternate versions of American history as told through Howard Zinn and all sorts of these things that you don't really learn in history books. You don't learn in public school.
It was like the audience started on one end of this space, and then there was a curtain, and then the curtain went away, and then there was a set over here and a set over here. And
you drive down through a 4,000, it's about a 150-foot, 4,000 square foot warehouse, and you would dock into different stages, and then different stages would roll in around you.
Wow.
It's a really small audience, right?
30 people, yeah. And so, you know,
very hard to push those 30 people.
We were going to motorize it, and then that didn't work out.
But in the last show, we used that.
We had an engineer say, you only need about 250 pounds of pressure to, you know, with the 10,000 pounds of audience that are on there and the drag force of the wheels, you only need about 250 pounds of pressure.
So I was responsible
so
for about 150 pounds of that pressure.
Well, sometimes you get stuck and there'd only be 2 people available who were doing something to push it.
I mean, if we're going to talk about this, opening night, we had a full audience. We had not tried it with a full audience before. There were 2 of us were designated to push this thing. Everyone else had costume changes and places they had to be. Matt and I jumped behind it. I was one of the 2, and we realized immediately it wasn't going anywhere. We weren't going to get anywhere with this. And I see James like changing into his next thing, and I'm calling him from off stage, like, we need more hands on this. We're not going to get anywhere. People are waiting to do anyway.
No, what happened? What happened?
He ran out. I think we ended up with like 4, instead of 2 people, we initially had 4 people, and we had to get some more grease on the wheels.
Like, you remember when you get there and your feet are like...
Oh yeah, we had to be like really bent down.
Spit on the bottom of our shoes,
like,
and I was just counting the shows that we had left of how many times I had to push that
How
thing
many
again.
shows was that?
We ended up doing about 60.
No, I don't think of that show. We did like 40.
40?
Wow.
Because I thought Placebo Sunrise, we did 62.
Felt like 60. I just remember, I remember at one point my friend Matt and I are done pushing, and we weren't going to be in the next scene, so we got a minute to kind of sit back for a second while the audience moved into the next position. And we were just saying, 10 more to go, 10 more shows to go.
And he was living on the set, actually.
Oh yeah, Matt was living there.
He had some rent issues.
Some girlfriend issues.
No, he lived behind the saloon.
Yeah, he lived behind the saloon.
Oh, scary.
Yeah, there were rats.
Oh yeah. Also, this movement thing, I feel like we have to be really careful, like when the movements of the thing happens, because that can get old.
What movements?
Immediately.
Oh, the riser.
Like after the first time it happens, in a way, like if it's moving forward, I feel like we should really play with, if it's moving this way, things start here, so you have to turn around to see what's going on.
Maybe in the beginning it can move. It can come back toward the doors. You know, maybe it can move
what do we
away
have so
as
far?
James and John step off of the opening, scene, and they kind of like take a few steps forward. And we thought of that idea of them, actually, the risers pulling back as they're walking with the audience, and then when James goes on to the snow landscape, and then the risers push back. Fake them out.
But isn't there just a concept in general that eventually the audience won't notice? There are going to be I think there should be a bunch of moves. It's not like, wow, we're moving again. I think it should be, isn't there going to be a sense that they're going to move?
I feel like there's no
something's
way
going
for
to
us to
happen?
know that
Yeah,
until
we're not
actually
going to know
have
until
it.
I know we're not going to know that, but I think, you
there's a chance that we
move
could
to it or
build this
goal
thing
like
and
that.
it's so loud when we move it that we're going to have to make that a part of it every time it moves. And then there's a chance. No, I'm serious.
Yeah.
None of us have built a moving riser before. It could be that it's like cuckoo.
Could be really jarring.
Yeah, but in that case, we're going to have to
It's
make
not
that.
going to move fast, that's for sure. I mean, it's going to be so heavy that I don't think it's going to be moving quickly. And I don't think that it will be able to lurch. I don't think that it's going to be
but it
strong
might
enough
be.
to have it could have a jarring stop if we can.
What's the stopping mechanism on this thing?
We don't know yet. That's the next thing to figure out.
Let's test it outside.
On that cobblestone hill.
Oh, look. $3.98. It's 50 cents more.
Uh-oh, we're getting closer to big
405.
city.
Oh,
365.
Oh, I don't know what these numbers are changing on me.
That's for diesel, brother.
No, dude, it changes. Look.
Oh, 365 and 405. But this green I thought that was for diesel. I really did, but maybe I'm wrong. Diesel,
Cash.
it is. 405 is diesel.
There was four
Look
different.
back, it says diesel.
I know, but there's 4 different numbers. There was 2 numbers, and then those 2 numbers changed to 2 different other
Understood.
numbers.
All the yellow, all the red was us, and all the green was diesel. Are we in agreement on that much?
Sure.
No, sure, or yes?
No, sure, yeah, but that's,
Sure doesn't mean yes.
Well, is diesel
Sure means I'll go along with it because you always win. You become like a withdrawn, abused wife. Sure.
No, the point. Sure. The reason I'm not going to say I agree is because I didn't notice that. I knew one of them was diesel. I figured the cheaper one was regular gas. You know what I mean?
Then you believed me on Verdant.
I believe you on this as well. But the point is that it doesn't. It's beyond. It doesn't matter.
You don't have to apologize.
I just have to tell Nick that I wrote down something that you said last night in the concert.
Jesus.
Because it was
that
so
I
classic.
said in the concert?
Yes. And you said...
Like as in public?
Yes, and I think we'll be on the radio.
You played last night. What did I say?
Probably.
You said, we're just, this piece...
Oh, are you quoting directly right now?
Okay. No, I'm not. I'm okay.
So far we have.
Okay.
I think it's a paraphrase.
Yes, you were talking about the Boccherini piece.
Like, you got to say like before you say like.
And you said something like.
Yes, there you go. Now you can say anything.
Totally. We're just 5 guys exploring each other's textures.
Yeah, and so?
I just love that so
That was
much that I
brilliant.
wrote it down.
That's brilliant.
You were at the concert.
That's what I meant.
It takes a big
Thank
man
you very
to
much.
admit that, yes.
No, that's even better.
In public,
Totally.
on the radio.
They're beautiful. They're beautiful guys.
One of the things I'm interested in working on this ride idea is losing people, actually physically losing people in the space, so that people don't know where they actually are, you know.
Well, the new space is so daunting. It's like...
Yeah, but it's becoming more, the more that we set up stuff and the more that we divide the space up and look at it from different things, it's becoming clear to me what's possible in that respect.
This ride idea is very interesting to me. And actually not compromising on an idea is a little bit scary. to me, and actually having an idea and trying to go through with it is sort of a first, and I'm really interested in seeing what happens with that. Because I feel like we have a grandiose idea and we're like, oh, that would be great, and then we say, well, what else could we do that would give that impression or illusion or something? So yeah, I'm interested in having an idea and going through with it, and I think that's actually really important.
There's committing to an idea, but then it's like...
There's also I feel like there's a difference between an idea and just a general direction that you're going in. I feel like you can know, like, we're going west, because there's a magical land that lies in the west, and how we get there is going to be a series of ideas and choices that we make, you know, ideas that we execute and choices that we make about those ideas in terms of getting to that place.
Sometimes we'll have something written down. Let's say it's a page of text and you say we're going to use it. I think one thing that works well is if you commit to using that and you say, how do we make it work? And everyone can figure out a way to make it work. You could also take that page and throw it in the garbage, but, you know, and that's happened many times with us. But I think occasionally you have to say, no, I'm going to be bullheaded about this, and let's use our creative know-how to make it happen. And if you are constantly second-guessing some core principles of what you're doing, then it's just going to be really annoying and nothing's going to happen.
Even on like little tiny steps, like if you're acting in a scene, even just to get your first foot in front of the other, you're basically making a choice, right? It's like, how do you, I guess, I don't know, maybe that doesn't work. But it's like, how do you get like out of the house? If you're so open to everything that's going on, it's like, well, what are you guys laughing about over
No, I was
there?
just thinking blink decision versus, you know, thinking about a decision. Like improv, you know, in the moment having to make that decision.
But
your process-oriented thing, having a month to decide whether to use that piece of paper or not. And they're actually the same process. They just, the timeline is totally different.
And sometimes you do something that's improvised and it works well one day and then it doesn't work at all the next time because the energy is just different, and you have to acknowledge that. You have to say it's not working. And but I think that's slightly different than not committing to a larger
I like
goal.
I like what you were saying about West, or like having a compass, like where you know your general direction and you know you're gravitating towards something, but you can flow with it a little bit. But it's always hard because like you have to make decisions. But of course, as you said, those decisions are true one day and are not true another because of the space you're in, because of the people. So I think the compass becomes hugely important then, because it's like, all right, at least we know we're going towards that. And we'll find, you know, we'll make decisions that help us go there.
I think I remember talking to a famous actor. He just kept telling me, it's all about the process, it's all about the process. And I was a very result-oriented person. I thought in my mind I just was looking at the result. How is what I do now going to affect me then? What is it going to look like? How can what I do in this moment affect that? And then how will that be perceived? And that didn't feel right. And when I heard this actor say, process, man, process, I thought, I want to shift that gear around a little bit. Like, it doesn't feel right to just be thinking about the result. You know, I got to live in the moment. It's about the process. But recently, having finished a project, I got so much out of the completion. Now, again, it's not that I was in the beginning of the process and looking toward the end, but I do really now value the completion. Getting a chance to look at the final thing, getting reflections from people's comments, and also having some real distance yourself, able to reflect on what I did, why I did it. There's a lot of value in that. I don't know. I should have wore a hat.
when you're learning your technique and you're focused on technique so much for so long, like at what point do you feel like you forget about
The point where you know it's like it doesn't help.
It doesn't.
That
Yeah,
takes a long
better.
time, and it's like.
Well, but I think
wait,
also
wait,
like
it
in
doesn't
the
help?
teaching from the beginning, it should be like not.
It's never
It's
divided.
never divided. Like if the teacher has divided it, then that actually requires a lot of like psychological help to put them back together. Yeah.
That's interesting.
I mean,
Yeah.
I feel like when going to Juilliard, most students were having that problem, which was you go and you start being so technically
freaked out on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
pressured that you just forget every reason why you're
Right.
enjoy it
Well, 'cause
or why
I
you're doing
yeah.
it, and it's hard to know what parts to let go of again and how to get back to your own thing and
Right.
use what you learned. And it's just
Maybe it's like
I think
in
everybody
dance.
struggles.
I think in dance it's
at
maybe
that
different
point.
than in music because like Bill, I work with Bill T. Jones, and sometimes he'll intentionally hire dancers who have very little training technically because they have such an honest performance quality about them.
I mean, deciding to do that, once you've decided to do that, then using, I guess what I'm thinking about is the Ives thing, and then you were like, no, people should sing in tune. Yeah, okay. So people should play in tune. No, because when we play a quartet or when we play an orchestra thing, we actually are in a situation with a bunch of professionals and we have a common goal. And the common goal is more important than the technical thing. And so when you decide to do a community thing with non-trained people, or if you're singing a church choir with non-trained voices, what was important to Ives was fulfilling the goal of that moment.
Sure.
And so
There's only
like
a common goal.
So the common goal is more important than the
Buy the
technical
back, what if she
proficiency.
wants to have it
But
in the front?
it all is tailored to what is the situation.
in or
If
out?
you're
Right.
a
Right,
group
right.
of trained
Right.
professionals, whether
Yeah.
it's dancers and musicians, and you want to fulfill what that can be, then you have to
Right.
play in tune, or you have to
Right.
move
Dance
your
in
arms
tune.
I mean,
in
in
unison
tune.
together. If that's your goal, it's like what is the goal? Yeah.
They call her frivolous Sal, a peculiar sort of a gal, with a heart that is mellow, an all-round good fellow was my old pal. Yes?
So Sal was a mule, huh?
I've got a mule, her name was
Yeah.
Sal, 15 miles on the Erie Canal. We've hauled some barges in our day, filled with lumber, coal, and hay, 'cause we know every inch of the way from Albany to Buffalo.
Oh, you're ending with the key change?
Low bridge, everybody down. Low bridge, 'cause we're coming to town. And you'll always know your neighbor, you'll always know your pal if you've ever navigated on the Erie Canal.
I guess there isn't a song about the Delaware Canal.
Oh, Delaware.
I was brainwashed at one point in my life. Maybe I'm being brainwashed right now and I don't even know about it. I'm cool with that. There was a British musicologist and psychotherapist that was active earlier in the 20th century. His name was Hans Keller. And he wrote a lot of really fascinating books about music that were totally uncompromising. He gets really deep into like the world of like Haydn's string quartets and what it meant, what was going on there. Why are they works of genius? And he'll even go so far as to say why this work of Haydn is a masterpiece and why this one isn't, which I wouldn't go there in a million years, but I'm glad that there are people that do that out there in the world. But one of the things that he said that really stuck with me and that I still struggle with, even in this conversation, even though I think I very much agree with the idea of compromise that we're all talking about in terms of coming to a group collaborative decision about something, but he was adamant about the fact that like the compromise is the worst thing that an artist can do. And he's probably turning in his grave because I'm misquoting him, but that's what I remember. The compromise, the merging of two ideas is the worst thing that can happen, you know, in terms of, you know, arriving at a vision, say, of an interpretation of said Haydn string quartet out there. And so to me, that's kind of like, I struggle with that a lot because, okay, you want to go to the other person and mend your ideas in a way, but have you lost your compass?
Even the concept itself of giving yourself up to a collaborative group, I think, is, I struggle with that all the time.
It's hard. It's hard even when you think it's a good idea.
Oh, yeah, it's definitely, I mean, is it harmony that we're after? Because harmony might be easier in strict hierarchy, you know, where one person is making a decision. It might be that people actually feel, or some people would, other people would hate it. So, but I think harmony, in terms of consensus, like because it's not voting, that's not going to bring happiness, that's everyone being unhappy. Maybe it's that.
Consensus is everyone being unhappy?
No, consensus means that you've given in to an idea or you've won your idea, whatever it is. It involves submission of a lot of people to an idea. The model is not necessarily totalitarianism. I think we could all agree probably at this table that would be a bad idea, but harmony would be a goal. So I don't know if it's like there's a roving hierarchy. Like at any one moment, there is hierarchy, but it is changing constantly. It's not predetermined or forever, you know.
The flow of it in and out of yourself.
When I had a lot of ideas and a lot of just like raw energy about the piece we're working on now, there were just things that were very palpable, and then just what happens is those things sort of, you absorb them, and then and they're not like at my fingertips right now, and I'm having to pull them out. I'm in a different place, and it's just like.
And things change so much, like when we were talking about it originally.
Yeah.
The whole thing, and I feel like in a way, the longer we work on it, it's just going to keep changing at the same rate. And it's just a matter of like when it, you know, as long as we have enough time, you know, when it actually gets done, it's going to hit that place in the cycle, you know, where that's where all of our ideas got to.
It's hard too when your personal in can sort of change because your idea gets filtered through 6 people or 7
Yeah,
other
it's
people.
really true.
So your access point becomes different and shifts somehow, and then I feel like sometimes for a week or 2 I can't access the same idea anymore or the piece anymore.
We play in a quartet, and that's 4 equal parts. Quartets were not like that when they were first established as a performing ensemble. There was always a clear leader.
They were named after the first violinist.
Or the violist in the case of Primrose, but you know.
That's a rarity.
Yeah.
But they were like normally known as the last name of the first violinist.
Like for example, it would be the what?
The Paganini quartet, the Joachim quartet.
Okay.
Yeah, the Capet string quartet, the Bush string quartet.
And
I could go on.
It's a democratic process, and I think we're lucky because we are, you know, about 90% there in terms of agreements, and then so, you know, straying this way or that way, it's not really going to pull us off from the very basic understanding that we share in. But we do play in a group called the Knights, as Colin said, and this is a group of 35 people often, and very different personalities, different experiences, musical experiences, life experiences. There are a lot of disagreements and this feeling of like, how are we going to move forward? You know, it's not like this. No, it's not like this. It's like this. But you want to keep the democratic spirit. You want to have everybody heard, and then you also this idea of Keller, you know, of like the compromise. I would say that there's something to that, the great recordings, old great recordings that we love listening to, they have an imprint, you know, of someone made that imprint on that recording. Someone made a really strong interpretation, a play or a film, you know, it has a stamp that someone took all the decisions and then, you know, put it all together into what it is.
But don't you think that could be arrived at by a group? Like that strong, whatever that strong thing is?
Yes, I mean...
Like you guys could form that amongst yourselves, and it's who's
and
to
and
say,
we do,
yeah.
and we do. But what I was going to say is that one way that I've thought of, I wouldn't see anything wrong with just saying, you lead this project, and we will do everything that you say to fulfill that project. And if you say, and if you come to us to a place where you don't know how to move forward, then can draw from the pool of, talent to move it forward. I do feel like taking away equal responsibility to make the decision of step out of your house, left foot in front of the right foot, is the thing that moves, that moves things forward. And that's, that's kind of the point of having.
Well, if you let go, you have to know that someone else is going to be there to hold it up.
Yeah.
You can't just let it go and it drops, because then it just won't happen.
And in terms of focus, it doesn't mean, the giving the baton doesn't mean non-participation or
It actually
fade into
means
the
like
background.
modeling citizenship
Right.
in a way which can, when you know that you're in that role.
Which is really hard because, of course, if you have strong opinions, then it's hard to do that thing.
Yeah.
I
It's
think
still rolling.
in
You're
my
gonna confess something to the camera.
I am. Okay, I'm going to confess that in a
No, you can
previous
confess when
life.
We're not here. We're not here. This will be like your confession moment. This is your
Oh,
little
but
moment.
it's no good if I don't have an audience.
You have an audience right here.
Oh, I see.
Okay, you have God.
Okay.
You have to have a relationship with the camera.
All right.
Now,
They're getting out of the car to look over the top of the mountain. And I can't do that. I'm still in the car. Because somehow, being up high and looking down a long way down does not agree with me. And I was going to tell them that I thought in a previous life I might have been pushed off a high place. At any rate, I don't do well with high places. It's beautiful, but I'm looking the other way at the rocks and the brush. It's gorgeous. And the colors. I told Dion it would be a nice place to get the sketchbook out, and with the shapes and the colors and well, I do think that some places are more spiritual than others. I think maybe because you're more connected to the land, the atmosphere, there's more space. There's got your feet on the soil instead of the cement.
My parents had a small beach house on the Jersey Shore, and some of my favorite times were in the winter. Being out on the beach or the boardwalk when it's cold and you're bundled up and you're looking for shells or whatever. I was out there once, walking along the dunes of the beach, and there was this kind of, I don't know if you'd call it a Cape Cod style slatted little fence, half in the sand, half out. And I'm walking along with a friend of mine. We look up maybe about 20 yards up the hill at the top of the dunes. Frantically trotting, pacing back and forth is a deer. A very odd sight, just like the pinnacle of the hill. Just beautiful image of the sand meeting the sky with this kind of frantically prancing deer. Out of nowhere, the deer kind of backs up a few yards, just almost out of sight over the hill, and then takes this running leap over the fence, 2 or 3 long prances over the course of a 50-yard span right into the freezing cold water. I mean, it was just this crazy act of survival, and it just seemed like a suicide mission. The thought of anyone or anything going in that water on that day, a day just like today where we're walking along right now with the crew and it's freezing, and you look at the water and it's freezing, and the snow and the ice are freezing, and here comes this deer taking just a half a dozen springs and landing in the ocean and continuing to swim at full bore away from whatever was out of our sight above the hill, some wolf or something. Just so wild and like something that would be from a Kubrick film or something.
I was at a lesson. I was playing whatever, And like she
Playing what?
I was just playing something. I don't even remember. I was playing the violin.
Yeah.
And she was like, she looks at me and she says, "Why is your stomach darker than your face?" And I was like, "What?" And I was like, "What? Like, why are you saying that to me right now?" And she was like, "Well, your stomach is always so dark." And I'm just like, "What are you talking about? Like, ew, why are you looking at me?"
You're like, "Sally, get out of my bedroom right now."
And I was like, "This is over. I can't have lessons in my bedroom anymore."
I fluctuate between 149.5. Honestly.
And 150?
And 152.5. So like I have
Didn't
like
you
a
used to tell me
3
you're like,
pound.
okay, this is my year. I'm putting on weight.
Well,
you told me
yeah,
that you're like,
no.
I'm gonna eat so much. I'm gonna bulk up.
It's true. I ran out of money though.
It's not, you're not dedicated.
You
He either
I
can't
went
afford a
strong.
gym or he can't afford food.
I went strong for like 3 days. I was eating a lot.
3
for 3 days.
How much did you put on in those 3 days?
I was seriously have been between the same 3 pounds for about 10, 11 years now.
Me too.
Same.
Remember when I was living with you and you used to eat like a pound cake and a milk before you went to bed? Was that to gain weight?
That was part of my weight gaining phase.
Ryan would come over with a little bag and he'd put it down, he'd set it up on the table, and then he'd open up the thing, he'd get it out, and then he'd break off a little piece of cake, drink the milk, okay, and he'd like turn on TV.
You have to unwind. Some people, you know, have a beer, a cigarette. I have cake and milk.
But sometimes you'd have a cigarette too.
Oh, shit. You're not gonna fatten up.
Mom is gonna see this.
We should stand up.
The thing about being alive is, thank you, ma'am, you helped us. I think that the thing about being alive is it's a constant alone, back together, community. Alone, reflection, back into community. Every great spiritual leader has always gone to the isolation, then back to the film. You deliver a film. You go back by yourself and you contemplate, and then you come and you make a film. You go back, you make a book. You come back, you act in something. Even Jesus, he needed a rest from all.
Even Jesus.
Even Jesus.
Even that guy who's the top guy. Is there anybody there?
Yeah. It's our friend from yesterday. We're back.
Good.
Because yesterday we only did these sort of fringe things, and we didn't go to the cave, but we want to go to the cave today.
Okay, cool.
All right.
And you know where everything is?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. Have fun.
Thanks
you
a
very
lot.
much.
Take care now. I will. Do you sing in a choir?
No.
Oh.
No, I can't sing.
Really?
No.
You got a good voice for singing.
No.
All right. Take care. See
Thank
you,
you.
Jim.
Have a good day.
He's got an interesting timbre to his voice.
Wait, he's Jim too?
Yeah, everybody here's Jim. That's part of the requirement.
They only hire Jims?
They only hire Jims.
Do you know he tried to get his daughter to get into a country club, and they wouldn't accept Groucho's daughter? He didn't have a pool in his house, and he didn't want one because he didn't want freeloaders coming out and just hanging out at the pool all day. He didn't want people taking advantage of him. So his girls wanted to swim though. There was one girl. So he tried to enroll her in a country club, but they said no because she's Jewish. And he said, well, she's really only half Jewish. Could she go in only up to her waist?
My dad is a wonderful violist. Is a great musician who has never felt like he's really gotten to the place that he deserves, Even though he's had, good things happen, there has been a feeling in our house that it's, something's holding you back, and it's not you, it's the world is keeping you from really being at the top of your, at the top of the thing of who you are. And I think my sister is also a musician, and I think we both had kind of those vibes, just flowing around from when we were kids, because we were hyper focused on a very specific thing that I'm not sure that even we chose. But at a certain point, you know, there was a thing of like, well, you deserve this and you deserve that. If you believe that, which I think at a certain point I did, the conflict of that was also self-doubt of like, am I actually good enough? I stopped playing for a while. Like, I couldn't reconcile those things. It's still kind of an issue, but I guess it takes a trained mind to like let it pass, and I'm not at that place, you know, where I can just recognize it and see it and let it go. So occasionally it pokes its ugly head.
I have a great photograph, Long Beach Island, circa 1981, of myself posing with this half a decayed animal's skull that I had picked up off the beach, some fur on it, maybe a couple of feathers stuck in, either the animal that it was or the animal that had attacked the other animal. And there I am, I have it, it's like the jaw of the animal I have masking half of my jaw pressed right up against my face. I guess my dad was pretty relaxed about those kind of things. I feel like if I saw my 6-year-old picking up a half-decayed animal skull and pressing it up against his face, I might put the camera down and tell him to drop that thing.
I'm plagued by when I have a conversation or a meeting or an interview with someone, I walk away, I'm like, they hate me. I'm plagued by it. So I have like a self-doubt plague that gets in my way sometimes. I have to recreate the whole conversation. Then I said this, and then they had this little reaction, and then like they didn't say anything else after, you know, or something, you know, I have to replay it. And I spend a lot of time working alone, especially lately. I live in LA right now, so I'm a little bit more isolated from you know, we used to always be together 20 hours a day. We were 19 hours a day we were together, always working on stuff. And now that we don't work in that same way anymore, I do a lot of my work alone, and then we get into a room with some people and get the stuff done. But it's a lot of my thinking happens in this weird echo chamber. And if the wrong echo gets released into it, then it can, you know, start to reverberate. And get big, you know, the wave gets bigger and bigger. So that's something that I personally have to work through a lot, and I feel like it does get in my way. I feel like I could be such a more productive, I don't know, successful, whatever. Something would click for me more if there was that part of my brain that I could just learn how to stroke it into some, you know, give it the big open field to run around and do its own thing in, where then I don't have to, I can let it do its thing. And I'm trying to get into some Buddhist metaphor where you just allow it to do its thing instead of try and like carve it out like a cancer.
Yeah, I had a friend a number of years ago who was trying to open a jar and broke a tendon. And the doctor told her that an incredibly talented cellist was told that she would never play again just because she tried to open a jar. It didn't work out so well for her. And fortunately, she's back playing again and doing beautifully, but that was kind of a stroke of luck. But that kind of sort of lightning bolt moment, you know, could happen at any time. Actually, some of these problems that we're talking about, I think, are really serious impediments to what we do on a daily basis.
It's an instrumental called Apache.
Yeah? How's it go?
It starts with this, in the 60s, it goes... Bow-no-no, bow-no-no-no-no, bow-no-no, bow-no-no-no-no, boom, 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 boom.
Sounds good.
Did you play that at Miho's show?
You know, we were talking about is I really want that Indian dance to be like really kind of like curvy.
Now, this will be perfect,
And
I
like,
think. I have to get it.
definitely some jumping, but like really curvy.
As a dancer, I've learned so much from you guys, musicians, watching something that I know nothing about, but I see what, and I hear what I'm moved by, and that it comes back to me in my dancing as far as like what is important
not knowing anything about, musical technique, as far as dance technique goes, that's not what it's really. It's a vehicle for expression.
It
Or
goes the other way too, because if you're a dancer, you just assume, you do the things that you do, and it's like it's a normal routine. But when I started playing with your company, and I saw, like going on tour and doing the same programs over and over again, and seeing how much intentional work goes into every performance was like shocking, because any group goes on tour, if you're a musician, often it just becomes a routine. You show up like 15 minutes before the show, you do the show, it's over, and you guys get there like 3.5 hours before, you do your warm-up. It's not random, there's a reason behind it, so it's like you get into the space of being on stage and you're performing, and no matter what happens in a performance, you're performing for the people. So it's like there's the performance attitude, like you're giving something to the audience. Even if something's going horribly wrong, you still like.
I'm actually honestly like to switch gears a little bit. How was that?
That's good.
Try to take that again.
Wait, let me try it. Huh? No, seriously, let's just switch gears for a minute.
No, to switch gears a little bit. Get the line right.
Oh, okay.
Wait, you really had nothing to say?
Let's switch gears?
Yeah, let's to switch gears a little bit.
In order to switch
it's
gears.
like let's
That's
to switch gears a little bit. It's like conversations.
I see.
Are people saying that if musicians show up 15 minutes before that they're not totally stoked to be there?
No,
because
no.
I could show up 5 minutes before and be like,
shouldn't you be
Let's
living
play,
what you want to
let's play. This is gonna be great.
the whole time?
When we talk about our relationship to the audience, I just want to be clear. I understand today what my relationship at the age of 43 is with the audience. I need them, I want them, I love them. But I don't need them to tell me that I'm okay as a person, which is different now. And I'm very grateful for that evolution. I'm doing better commercially than ever before. Is it a coincidence? I think so. I mean, I don't think so. I think all that, just fucking roll the dice. Get me out of here. I haven't had a drink in 16 years. Give me one. Right there. And the best moment of that whole little freaking speech was the mistake, because that's where the pressure releases, and we have an exchange. Oh, this packaged fucking line he's given before is over, and he made a mistake, and then
exactly what I was thinking.
we have our, you know what I mean? That's what I'm thinking.
The thing that I learned from working with a dance company is that performing has a lot to do with what you do for somebody else, what you do for the audience. A lot of the time in orchestra, the relationship from the stage to the audience is completely cut off. You have a big group, and if you're in the back of a section, it feels like it doesn't really matter. But the thing is, the audience is not dumb. The audience feels it right away. So that's the thing. It's like when you're in an audience for a dance show, say what you want about the performance, the interpretation, the choreography. You know that the dancers are performing for you.
Do you think it has to do with the amount of training and the amount of people?
Yeah.
You've got like, not like a small ensemble of people, of highly trained people performing, but instead a huge ensemble of highly trained people performing. Let's say you've got 90 people on stage and 40 of them are have a totally different idea of what the performance should be like.
I think it's
but the thing is, like, the highly trained thing is not, it's like, often it's used as a prerequisite to not do shit. It's like, oh man, I'm highly trained. I went to school for this shit.
I should be the soloist.
It's like, so what? You're highly trained. Yeah, great. That's why you're here. Now do something.
But showing up
instead of like,
minutes.
I've studied violin since I was 5 years old. So
I think the supreme challenge in the 10,000 hours of training is to actually be able to a certain point, and maybe that is the magic thing that happens at the 10,000 hours or the 6,500 hours or whatever you're doing, you're actually able to shift the focus away from yourself. And to me, like, the state of concentration means not at all being concentrated in what I'm doing, actually, and being hyper aware of what's happening in the room and what's happening, in terms of my colleagues. What are their bow arms doing at a given moment gives focus to my bow arm.
Of course, you know, if you show up an hour beforehand to get into that space of being ready to perform, it's going to be different. But at the same time, it's what you've been thinking about the whole time. It's what you think about all day, every day.
That's what I'm saying. That's
what you're there for.
It's like you could show up 5 minutes, boom. It's like, yeah, man.
Yeah, because you've already been preparing for like 2 years for every performance.
But this is
well, that's every
thing.
musician and every dancer.
Yeah, it should
well,
be.
I think
Should
it's just.
be.
I
It
think
should
they're
be.
just very different
They're different.
situations.
Yeah, they're different.
Like I mean, there's
That's why you
we hear from Sandeep, you know, that like an Indian traditional musician would not rehearse with like you
Hell
show
yeah,
up at the
that's what I'm
gig
saying.
and you've had 20 years of training and because the guidelines of that music are such that like you know what scale you're playing in and what rhythm you're playing in, then you improvise. You know, it's just it depends on what you're doing.
Right.
As much preparation as you have, like you have the opportunity to fail or I mean to connect with the other performer or the audience in that situation as you do with preparation. I mean, it just all depends on the vibe of the performers, the guidelines that are set, the space that you're in, and all of those.
But also the piece you're performing,
conflict, and the piece or the style or the whatever, like really affect how you should prepare or not or whatever. And there's no law.
I feel like most of, if not all of, the work that I do is created for others. To some degree. I don't know that I've ever just created... I can't think if I've ever just created something entirely for myself. Locked it up in a box, tossed it in the closet, and walked on to the next thing. I guess I do have those things, but it's always been my intention to let them out at some point. I struggle with the fact that I may want to do something, but I may not know why. I may not know what the connections are. I may not know, may not have the answer for somebody if asked, why did you do this? And I hate the answer, I thought it was cool, or, you know, it just seemed right. You know, I don't know why. I don't think there's anything wrong with just doing something because you think it's cool, or it just felt right. I think whatever you got to do to get stuff done, or certainly whatever I have to do, because I find that there's a lot more that I want to do that I stop myself from doing because I wonder if there are connections there, or you got to be critical of the work. You know, you're not just, I certainly don't want to just be one of those people that's just, you know, haphazardly throwing shit up and it's just, you know, waving my hand at it. This is what it is, and take it for what it is, and it's all great.
When you're playing his music, because it's really part of this collective, which is the Brooklyn Rider, do you feel like it's your music?
That question is very easy to answer, yes.
Because I similarly felt that way.
Yeah, ultimately the answer to that question is always yes. You know, you're very generous, I think, you know, as a composing voice, because I think you're also asking us to step into the individual parts that create the fabric of the whole in a way like it doesn't happen unless that process happens, where people make their parts their own in a way, and I think you invite that in the most natural way, which is great. It actually transforms the composition.
Classical composers are totally different. It's like totally selfish.
No, I don't know if it's totally
No, it's not
different.
totally selfish. I'm very conscious of the audience, but basically it's like, what can I do from this perspective, which is mine alone?
That's a very modern concept, though, actually. I think, I think Beethoven fucked it all up.
He fucked it all up, right?
Yeah.
What a jerk.
But we love him. He was aware of the myth he was creating about himself. That's what I think. I think he was a rock star, and he was
totally
creating a myth around himself.
No, there's no doubt.
But what does that have to do with you?
That's the difference,
Nothing.
basically.
Well, because I was not writing Burlesque as an idea of
it's going to
redefine music somehow. I was writing something for us to enjoy playing, like the joy of playing together, and that I hoped someone else would enjoy listening to.
And that's superior.
But Beethoven, I feel
that's
like
superior, though.
What?
I think
No,
it's,
that's
I mean
not
that's
it
my
has
own.
nothing to
Wait,
do
wait,
with-
wait,
no.
wait.
Kanye
Essentially,
says.
it's my own philosophical point of view that
Such
this
an elitist
aesthetic.
asshole.
Wait, no. Beethoven was an elitist asshole because he said my point of view is superior to everyone else's. Appreciate my point of view. You're saying all I want to do is create something that we enjoy playing together, and therefore people will enjoy listening
Yeah,
to.
perhaps
that,
so.
That has much more
yeah.
in common with everything else other than Beethoven and Beethoven-inspired music.
We have all these layers of history that have happened, and I think Beethoven has meant different things to different people at different times. And it's just impossible to decipher that. But what I do know is that we've received a ton of baggage since Beethoven's time. I mean, even from our own teachers. And I think part of the thing about looking at tradition with a really critical lens is like not to take as a kind of word of God, you know, what you receive from your mentors. You know, like this is what Beethoven is in a way. And I think we've all struggled with that, you know, with our teachers, as great as they have been. You know, you never want to just accept that as fact. You actually want to dig into the tradition in ways to actually discover that the tradition is true and that it exists for a reason, and that the power of Beethoven is actually something tangible, not just because somebody told you that it is. And coming back to the idea of writing a piece together, I think that was part of the whole idea, is if we can immerse ourselves in the skills of being musicians, whether they be improvisatory things or compositional things, the carpentry or the electricity of making music happen, like building those skills, you actually get to the heart of the tradition that I think Beethoven speaks truest through. And that was really important for us.
You know, it doesn't have any aspiration to transcend this moment, actually. It just is supposed to be enjoyment, you know. But I think he actually desired to transcend the moment and succeeded at it. So good job, Beethoven, you know.
I think everybody who creates anything is trying to transcend some kind of moment. You know, it's like getting away from like
No, it can be.
like the you know
It's supposed to be
the
45 minutes
the dullness, you know, of moment to moment life,
It's just
right?
so
I
different.
mean, that's
like,
so.
when you go back like 300 years, who's recording the history? Like the guys recording the history are the same guys who are the
But the
intended
creative
audience for that
creative
music.
impulse, I think, is still
Chill
like
out.
a special
Okay.
and a cherished one. You know, it's like not a common thing that people are actually given this.
Yeah, but
ability.
it doesn't mean that guys who are only guys like Bach and Buxtehude
No,
and his
I'm
contemporaries
kidding.
are the ones who are writing music that's
No, and you know, like none of us, you know, are an elitist in this sense. But I think
But at that time, whoever's
we can
recording
have
the
some
history is
pasta
super elitist, there's no
from
doubt.
you know Delta.
You know, we're all just wandering around this scrubby little rock called Earth, just aching for something extraordinary to happen. We want something extraordinary to happen, and I think that's what makes us susceptible and open to. And you know what? Fine. If you got to take LSD to have a great visual, psycho-spiritual experience, do it. You know. If you've got to believe in ghosts. You know, horror movies don't scare me, man. That's why I asked you guys that the other night. I'd like to see a movie that would scare me. You know, one thing that's been revealed to me, and it hasn't left me yet, so maybe there's something to it. It's an image of the of creation being an explosion, a proliferation out into differentiation and complexity, right? All these different things, these different worlds, these different creatures, all the way down to the microscopic and the different, and then this collapse back into unity. And somewhere in that great proliferation of what is that called? Like, I don't know, there's a word that's like when things become many things. We're seeing, you know, all these different parts. This explosion out, somewhere in that explosion out into
the diaspora.
Yeah, it is like that. That's a mini version of the same thing. This somewhere in that explosion out into multiplicity, there are our minds too. And our minds returning to unity, some of our minds return to unity before other of our minds return to unity. And I think that's all part of it. It's like any of these particles at the fringe, it's going to take them longer to get back to the center. And I think there are minds that are closer to unity consciousness than I have right now, which is they know all the time that all is one. And I forget it sometimes. And then there's some people that don't know it at all. They just think it's, you know, guns and I gotta kill you because if I kill you, your physical body, I will rid myself of my problem. And I think it's a spectrum. I think it's a spectrum of awakening that we're talking about and along. And you always have to deal with your own consciousness where it is.
One of the really exciting moment for me was when you wrote Forca-Colo X. You took the marker and you wrote Forca-Colo X on that platform because you spelled it exactly the way I spelled it, and you'd made it your own. In that moment, I felt like everyone had absorbed Forca-Colo X. Funny, it's a wax that you can absorb, but I felt like it wasn't my idea anymore. The idea itself had become like everyone's idea, and it had become something that could be anything because I felt like we all owned it in some way. Anyone could say anything about it, you know. And I felt really good about that. It just felt really comfortable. I don't know, is that really ridiculous?
No, I was gonna say I was thinking we should cut it.
It's so funny because you were saying, Maile, that you learn so much from classical musicians. Like you don't know about musical technique, but you feel the way in which they interact. And I feel like we're sort of retarded and then we show up and I don't know. I'm not a performer, you know. So I include myself in this only in like a half sense, but I feel like I learned much more from being around dancers, just from the openness. It's like there's this like natural relation in your art between the expression and the physicality of it, which is very natural. And physicality in our art is like secondary. It's totally secondary. Everything hurts, and it's gonna hurt for the next week while you learn this piece, and it's totally unnatural. And you bend you've been playing for years. You don't even notice anymore. You bend your body into like totally convoluted forms in order to express something that's unrelated to the form in which you express it.
Just hearing you talk about the dance world and like the warm up, and then Johnny is saying about the lack of what an average musician might do. It seems like actually there's a lot that we could learn in a way from each other. You know, like the idea of musicians taking that aspect of it more seriously, than we do, and then dancers actually, doing what musicians do sometimes, and trust in their physicality, in the moment actually, which is to say that certain things happen when you perform that happen to your body, in the moment in front of an audience, that just, you can't warm up for that.
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. We made some really incredible experiences where that turned into, the shows would end and then they would turn into a party that would last all night, just amazing experiences. And those are, gone, and I can tell you that it was an amazing experience, and you can see a picture or maybe some video.
There's something about like a temporal form, I feel that too, like what I was saying, a couple weeks after the show is over, I'm feeling I've still got the energy, of the thing. But it's like a temporal thing, it's over, it happens over time and then it's over, and you start to wonder, did I do anything?
Yeah.
Did this exist? Did it matter? It's disorienting.
there's also the thing of like building something up so much in your mind over a particular, you know, performance or a milestone. And many things could happen. You could have a sold out performance with a nice review in the New York Times, and you know, everyone loved it, and your parents were there and they loved it, and it's just such a great thing. The next day, you know, you looking at your life as like, has my life changed at all?
Yeah, nothing has changed.
It's you know, exactly the same person. And you know, and it's weird because from a very early age, it's about those like, you know, milestones, just building it in. You know, achieving things and getting to those. But the day after it's like, who are you as a person? And then, you know, that could be either good or scary.
Destination on the left in 1.1 miles.
Okay, did I do something wrong? Because I think it's behind us.
No. Oh, yeah, I think you passed it. Yeah, you're right.
Oh, there's a lady right behind us, just waiting to get on her way. All right, I'm just trying to figure out what's happening here. 0 minutes, so that means it's still recording, but it's like,
yeah, it's
on total warning.
It's going to end any second now.
Well, what I'm saying is, you know,
we can commiserate around a table, but I think actually how we proceed and the face that we put to the world, and actually the face that we put to our colleagues, you know, has to be one of total optimism and the feeling that there is always room in the world for what you want to do creatively, and that you can build it. You know, it's a building process, and that it can always happen. I think that's the eternal optimism of, I think, what we do, and that's why we do it. Even if I'm telling myself a lie, that's the one that lie. Yeah, it's a good lie. It's like, why not? You know. But I don't believe it to be a lie.
Well, art is art, isn't it? Still, on the other hand, water is water, and east is east, and west is west. And if you take cranberries and stew them like applesauce, they taste much more like prunes than rhubarb does. I lost my train of thought.
Bye.